The first college football playoff poll is released. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, I joke all the time when I say the Sunbelt tiebreakers hurt my head. We're going to do the Sunbelt Championship host, just the host. There's 8 things to determine who hosts if there's a tiebreaker. That's why it hurts my head. I want you to know why, and maybe it hurts your head, all right? We'll do the early week 11 betting lines as well. But the first college football playoff poll was released on Tuesday, and I don't think there was that much of a surprise, right? Alabama is still in it, right? We'll quickly go down it. It's Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, Miami, Texas, Penn State, Tennessee, Indiana is 8, BYU is 9, Notre Dame 10, Alabama 11, Boise State is 12, and then you have SMU, A&M, LSU. Alabama and LSU are playing each other. Ole Miss and Georgia are playing each other. Iowa State, which shot themselves in the foot with a loss this past week. Pittsburgh, Kansas State, Colorado is 6-2, Washington State 7-1, Cardinals from Louisville, Clemson is behind Louisville because Louisville beat them, but Clemson's only got 2 losses to the Cards 3. Missouri is 24, and Army is actually 25. So there are a couple of things to be said. Miami is behind, 2 teams with losses. Now, the Ohio State loss, that's to Oregon, so you can understand that. And it was in Oregon, and it was by a point, right, or a couple points. And so that makes sense. Georgia's was to Alabama, and Alabama is not that good. I know Alabama is sitting there at 11th, but they are the highest ranked 2-loss team. And that's because they're Alabama. Okay. They lost to Vandy. Vandy is not listed. Vandy's not in the top 25. So Vandy can't be that good. I did see my guy Brandon Marcello from CBS Sports Net, maybe 24/7 Sports. He, Penn State hasn't beaten anybody, and they just lost to Ohio State. That was at home. That's not great. I don't know what's going on with Miami, right? They've had a couple of close calls, kind of win and move on. They were losing to Duke by a couple of scores, and then they blew Duke out. Texas has the 1 loss. That's it. Tennessee has the 1 loss. Indiana does not. The thing is, Indiana hasn't really played anybody. Remember, that's former JMU head coach Curt Cignetti, who is basically locking up Coach of the Year. They play Michigan. They should be able to beat Michigan. They do get Ohio State. What if they lose to Ohio State and don't get in to the playoff? Do they, that's 1 less loss because they wouldn't lose a championship game. Let's see if we can get that here. So Indiana's got Michigan this week. Then they're at Ohio State. Then they're at Purdue. They could very well be 11-1. And maybe they do get into the big, not if they lose to Ohio State. If they lose to Ohio State, they would not. All right. All right. And then Boise State is 12th. I don't think, although it does seem like Boise State is 12th and Army is 25th. Seems to be a big difference there. Let's see if we can find the rankings and see who else has gotten votes, right? AP top 25. Missouri's not in the top 25. Vanderbilt is in the top 25, by the way. South Carolina got other votes. Tulane's got other votes. UNLV, they had a shot to beat Boise and played Boise. The Cajuns are others receiving votes. That's 9. Washington is 4. Arizona State is 3. Texas Tech is 2, right? They took down Iowa State, and Iowa has a pair. Dropping from the rankings is Illinois and Missouri. So you do have Army at the AP poll. They're at 18th, and Boise State is 12th. So, again, we'll see. It's going to be obviously the Cajuns are going to need some help, right? If the Cajuns weren't defeated, I don't think they would be higher than Boise State, but obviously I think they would be ranked, right? They'd be top 25 because all of a sudden you've beaten Tulane and Wake Forest and then went into San Marcos and beat Texas State. But Texas State isn't that great, so we'll see. It's just the beginning. And a lot of these teams are going to play each other eventually, right? I mean, Oregon and Ohio State may play again. All right. Miami doesn't have to play anybody else. They get Syracuse in the Dome. I'm not counting on that one. All right. Who does Texas have left? Texas has Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and A&M. I mean, they're going to be favored in every single one of those, although they are at A&M. All right. A&M got a little bit exposed this past weekend, but still going to be tough to go into College Station and win. Who's Penn State got left, right? Penn State doesn't have a hard schedule. They got Washington, at Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland. So they could have one loss. So it'll be interesting to see on how all these tiebreakers end up. What does Notre Dame have? Like, I think Alabama may lose this weekend to LSU, and then they're eliminated. They got LSU, Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn. It would be typical Auburn, Alabama if Auburn won that ball game, but usually the crazy things happen with Auburn, Alabama when they're playing in Auburn and not in Tuscaloosa. That's the only problem there. Alabama just doesn't have a very tough schedule here at the end. I mean, Mercer at Oklahoma and Auburn, this is their toughest ball game. If they beat LSU, Alabama's going to be in the playoff. I guess they would have to win. Well, no, because they're not going to get to a SEC championship game. That's going to be fascinating, right? They're avoiding another potential loss by not getting into the SEC championship game. Interesting on how that goes. Obviously, big ball game. Ole Miss, we mentioned that with Georgia. That could take Georgia down, and how much would Ole Miss jump up? Right? They've had a couple of losses is the issue, right? They already have a couple of losses. That's the problem. They lost to Kentucky. It's a bad loss. That's just a bad loss. And that's at home. That's a bad loss for Lane Kiffin. And losing by 3 to LSU, no shame in that. But the Kentucky loss is bad. And so the point of that is, and everybody thinks, Tim Brando among them, that group of 5 team is going to be 12th automatically. And then you would get the 5th team. So let's see what that would be right now. So Boise State would get Texas in Austin, obviously. But again, a lot of these teams are going to be playing each other and being knocked off, or at least a few of them. And we'll see if Boise runs the table. Do they get in? Or, if they lose, do the Cajuns have a shot? Obviously, I don't think Georgia Southern has a shot. Too many losses already. But if the Cajuns, take care of business against Arkansas State and win the West and win the Sun Belt, they're going to be sitting there with one loss. We'll see. They are in the also, as we mentioned, they are in the also receiving votes, Mark. Well, Cajuns fans are just hoping they get into the top 25 AP. That would be huge. And they have I don't think it's a division clinching ball game, but certainly it, put them certainly in control with a win over Arkansas State. All right, so the first playoff poll was set. Again, Boise State is your G5 rep, and the Cajuns have an outside shot, very outside shot to get there. More than a few things have to happen. All right, let's take a timeout. When we come back, I want you people to understand why my head hurts when I talk about Sun Belt tiebreakers. And this is just to see who hosts the game for the Sun Belt Championship game. We will do that next, right after I tell you about Hims and FanDuel. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have to have time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra, and Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. And FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. So we were talking about, remember last week, if like Texas State won the ball game, they beat the Cajuns, there could have been a 5-way tie for first place, but that's not what happened. Cajuns remain undefeated. Georgia Southern with another miracle victory, another opponent melts down, and they are leading the division in the East. All right. So to go over, so I was talking about in yesterday's episode, how do you determine who wins the host tiebreaker, right? I mean, you would think it would be if there's a tiebreaker. So that means the Cajuns would have to lose and Georgia Southern would have to have that one loss. I can't imagine the Cajuns losing twice, but you never know. The idea is what happens if there is a tiebreaker. And I'm telling you, it is, again, 8 different scenarios. All right. Some are easier to understand than others, but I'm going to read them to you. All right. The following tiebreaker procedure is used to determine the host location for the Sun Belt Conference Football Championship game, right? First one, easy, head-to-head result between tied teams. They don't play. That's not on the list, right? Let's make sure that is the case, but I believe that that is the case, or else this segment goes by the wayside. But I was going to say the Cajuns got they got App State and Coastal in the East. So Georgia Southern and the Cajuns do not play. All right, that's one. That's easy. All right. If still tied, If one team was ranked in the latest available CFP selection committee rankings and wins in the final weekend of the conference regular season, it will be declared the host. If in that same scenario, the team that was the highest ranked team in the latest available college football selection committee rankings loses in the final weekend of the conference regular season, a composite average of selected computer rankings will be used to determine the host. We're at number 2, and my head's killing me already. So you have to be in the rankings and win. And if not, we go to composite rankings. Why wouldn't we go to head-to-head, Sun Belt record, overall winning percentage? I know the overall winning percentage may not be fair, right? I mean, Georgia Southern has Ole Miss and Boise State. So that may technically not be fair, but it is what it is. Okay. I think we get to that. That's the number 2 one. We did number 2. All right. All right. If there are multiple teams ranked in the latest college football playoff selection committee rankings, the highest ranked team that wins in the final weekend of the conference regular season will be declared the host. If the highest ranked team loses, the composite average of selected computer rankings that include all games on the final weekend will be determined the division champion. Goodness gracious. If none of the ranked teams win on the final weekend of the conference regular season, a composite average of selected computer rankings that include all games on the final weekend of the conference regular season will be used to determine the host. I don't even know what that means. What are we doing here? If none of the ranked teams win on the final weekend, so both division leaders lose, but still somehow manage to win the division, a composite average of selected computer rankings that include all games on the final weekend of the conference regular season will be used to determine the host. I read it twice. I don't know what it means. If no teams are ranked in the latest college football selection committee rankings going into the final weekend of the conference regular season, a composite average of selected computer rankings that include all games on the final weekend of the conference regular season will be used to determine the host. Well, that's the same thing, obviously. All right. If still tied, the team with the highest winning percentage against all common conference opponents shall be the host. Do we have any of those? Well, yeah. Cajuns beat App and Coastal. Georgia Southern still has App. And, well, they play South and they play Troy. So they'll have some common ground. And they play App and Coastal. So far, the Cajuns are 2-0. And Georgia Southern is 1-0. They have Troy, Coastal, and App still to come. All right. Again, you wonder why I say it hurts my head. All right. If they're still tied, the team with the highest overall conference and non-conference winning percentage against FBS teams shall be the host. So you can't use FCS squads. So you get to 7, and that's where the winning percentage overall comes in. If still tied, a coin toss will be conducted by the commissioner. So again, some of that I just don't understand. The composite computer average, are we just doing that for the last week of the season? I don't get it. But I just wanted to share with you, and I will put the tie-breaking link in the description and in the comments because it's ridiculous. All right, it is just utterly ridiculous. All right, should be much easier. Please let me know if I'm off base because it just doesn't make sense. I do not compute. I don't compute. All right, let's take a time out. Need a drink after that. We'll come back and do the early week 11 betting lines after I tell you about Z-Biotics and Game Time. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Here's how to use it. Drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Then drink responsibly, pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. And then enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. And Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets, which is exactly what I did going to the Louisville basketball game, or searching for tickets for the Louisville basketball game on opening night on Monday. You get those priority Game Time picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. All-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and the lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And you get that Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your team every day. We'll wrap up with the early betting lines and our early picks. App State going on the road, nationally televised ball game tomorrow night, taking on Coastal Carolina. Coastal coming off a tough loss against Troy. Again, I'm still not sure about firing an offensive coordinator halfway through, but that's what Coastal Carolina did. They're 4-4, 1-3 overall. App State, have they turned a corner? I don't know. Did they get to the corner? They're 4-4, 2-3 in the Sun Belt. Coastal Carolina favored by 1. I would take App State in that ballgame. All right. Cajuns hosting Arkansas State. Spread is a lot. 16.5 points. That may be too much for me. I think the Cajuns are going to win this relatively easily, but that's usually 2 scores. 16.5 is like 3. That's a lot. I like the Cajuns to win this one. Arkansas State plays much better at home than they do on the road, Michigan notwithstanding, and Iowa State's not fair either, but they got hammered by Texas State. They did have a nice bounce back game against Southern Miss, and they survived against Troy. So, I don't be very impressive if Arkansas State competes with the Cajuns. I'm just not sure that's going to happen. Monroe hosting Texas State. Texas State's favored by 7. I mean, here's the thing. Monroe could go bowling with a win. Texas State still needs 2 more wins. We're going to see. We mentioned the maturity of Monroe, and they impressed, right? They competed with Marshall. They did not get rolled over by Marshall. They could have gotten rolled over by Marshall. We did have a conniption on the sideline, but we've moved on from that. We're going to see how mature Texas State is, because this game is nationally televised. It is noon Eastern time, so 11 a.m. local Monroe time. Yeesh. And we'll see if Texas State is ready to play, because they're going to get hit in the mouth. All right. I mean, this is 2 pretty good defenses. Monroe will hit Texas State in the mouth and see if they recover, because it could be one of those things where Texas State gets down and they are just not into it anymore. They, not going to win the division most likely. Lost at home to the Cajuns. What do they have to play for? Let's see if they're mature enough to come out and, compete with Monroe, especially if Monroe jumps out on top. All right. Southern Miss hosting Marshall. Marshall, a 13.5 point favorite. Southern Miss got a little bit of heart, right? Let's see. They didn't play too poorly against James Madison. I think they covered against James Madison, losing 32-15. Reed Stringer taking over the reins for the Fighting Will Halls. I would think Marshall will win this one and probably cover. I guess the question is for Marshall, who is the quarterback? Is that a thing? I guess that's Braylon Braxton. And then you do have James Madison hosting Georgia State. That's 17. See, that's interesting to me, right? Because James Madison is pretty good. Not as good as the Cajuns, but pretty good. They're hosting Georgia State, who isn't very good. And JMU is favored by 17. What's Georgia State coming off of? Well, they played UConn pretty well. And maybe they have their quarterback. But I find it interesting. You would think JMU would be. My point is JMU. You would think would be favored by much more than that against Georgia State. But I guess that may be particular to James Madison, comparably so, right? Because I think Arkansas State, I think the Cajuns are better than James Madison, and I think Arkansas State's better than Georgia State by a little bit of a wide margin, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. I would probably take James Madison in that. They're not necessarily very good at covering. I'm not sure if I'm going to bet on any one of these. Maybe App. Going on the road is tough. Would probably bet on Monroe to cover and to win. I would. That's the one I'm liking. I'm liking Monroe at home against Texas State. That's the one where we will hop on FanDuel and place a little bit of a wager. I think that's the best one. Marshall's pretty good. You got to get that at 13.5 because 14, all of a sudden you're going on the road. Two score game is tough. That's one I like. App State and Monroe. All right. App State on the road. That's kind of tough too. All right. Again, we're up to 1,605 subscribers. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. We will preview the Coastal Carolina App State ball game for tomorrow's episode, and then watch it Thursday night, and then recap it, and then for Friday's episode, preview the rest of the action. Again, Georgia Southern's got the week off, but the Cajuns hosting Arkansas State. That is a huge, huge ball game. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. You've been watching and listening to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.